why a lot of doctors said, nothing's wrong with you. Everything looks good, because it's not going to come back on a lab result. It's not going to show up on x-ray or ultrasound or imaging. It's just kind of a big question mark, like hopefully it gets better kind of response. And so if that's you and you're struggling with that, the first thing I want to just say is your pain is valid and it's real. It's not all in your head. It's definitely in your body. And I'm sorry.
Do you long to get pregnant and trust your body again? Do you feel exhausted by the month after month cycle of hope and disappointment? Do you carry that creeping sense of failure? The fear that your body just isn't working the way that it should? If so, I'm so glad that you're here, my friend. Hi, I'm Mariana, a wife, mom, and a fertility care practitioner. After years of confusion and heartache, I learned how to understand my cycle with clarity and move towards pregnancy naturally by following a real system instead of guessing. This is Fertile Window Lab. If you're ready for real clarity about your cycle, a simple method that works, and less pressure from predictions, alarms, and fertility gymnastics, sit down the sticks, pop in your earbuds, and let's make sense of your fertility together. Welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about a topic many women silently struggle but rarely discuss openly: painful intimacy, pelvic tension, and the hope of healing. My guest today is Jess Seitz. Jess is a certified trauma-informed pelvic floor occupational therapist and a founder of Pain-Free Intimacy, where she helps women around the world overcome vaginismus and experience pain-free intimacy. With a background in nervous system regulation and chronic pain support, she brings compassionate and practical approach to healing. Jess, welcome to the show. Now that we know what you do, I would love to know, how did you get here?
Yeah, so my story, it's a little personal, because I had vaginismus myself and didn't really know I had it until I got married, because my faith is important to me, and so we decided to wait until marriage to have sex. And so we waited, and wedding night was a bit different than I had anticipated. We really struggled to get him in, and it was quite painful. And that continued throughout the honeymoon. And I, I probably could have guessed, because for me, like, tampons were a struggle and the gynecologist was a bit painful beforehand. I just honestly had thought that, getting married and having penetrative sex for the first time would fix everything, but it didn't. My gynecologist actually also said that too. She's like, well, maybe after you get married, we'll be able to get this exam done. So didn't work. The months following, I had gone to the gynecologist and was kind of like, hey, what am I missing? And per the usual, from what I have found with working with my clients, she kind of said, you just need to relax and use lube, drink wine. You'll be fine. We weren't fine. For the next 4 years, we kind of went in and out of different doctors' offices trying to get answers. We kind of asked around at our church, didn't really get any answers anywhere. Everything was just kind of like, well, it'll get better with time. And so I finally had a doctor, so I guess was 4 years in, who more so mumbled this word vaginismus, which was like, okay, great, diagnose it, fix me. So then I got a referral to pelvic floor therapy. And I spent the next 4 years in and out of pelvic floor therapy, doing dilators and exercises and stretches. None of it really seemed to work. I actually did get through all of the dilators, which there's typically like 5 to 8 in a set. And I think I had 8 in mine, and I got through all of them, but I still couldn't transition to my husband, which is exhausting when you worked really hard. And then the other thing was I'm a therapist. I'm an occupational therapist. And so I was like, I know I'm doing everything, but it's not working. So then I was told it was probably all in my head and I needed to see a sex therapist. So we saw a sex therapist, and it was pretty traumatic for us. We were told a lot of things we didn't agree with and just felt uncomfortable around the board with that. And so we decided to see a couples counselor together. So we saw a couples counselor. And they blamed my husband on my condition, which my husband's an absolutely incredible man. And so we knew that wasn't necessarily the big picture. So then we saw individual counselors, and mine just didn't know what vaginismus was or felt comfortable talking about it. We tried creams, we tried medications, and really just didn't get a lot of answers. And so we faced it for about 8 years. And yeah, our marriage at that point was pretty rough. We were pretty depressed. We were hurting. We were pretty, I would say I was pretty bitter, pretty mad, pretty angry. And so what finally did it for us was, thankfully at that time I was working as an occupational therapist with patients with chronic pain, using more of like an integrative nervous system approach. And so we kind of backed up, switched gears, started using that approach with a bit of nuance to it. And after about 3 to 4 months, we were able to transition to pain-free, possible, amazing, like penetrative sex. And it was shocking for both of us. We thought it was a fluke, but now it's been over 7 years at this point and still no pain. I don't use dilutors anymore. Like, I have a sex drive, and now I get to help women around the world be able to get past this and enjoy intimacy the way God designed it to be. So long story short, there's a whole lot more in there, but yeah, that's more or less my story.
What would be the first step a woman can take this week if intimacy feels painful?
Well, so I guess I should define probably what vaginismus is with that. So vaginismus is when penetration, whether that's with a sex and intimacy or a tampon or, the gynecologist, whatever, when there's an involuntary muscle reaction, that can lead to either a wall kind of happening where those muscles kind of close off and say nope, or there's kind of a burning or stinging, sharp kind of pain that happens. And that pain can happen either superficially at the opening or deep in. And so it's an involuntary muscle reaction upon something coming in, essentially. There are other reasons why we can have pain with sex, but typically it's vaginismus, which often now is called dyspareunia, which is a general term for pain with sex. But I find that to be more of a involuntary kind of reaction that happens. And there's not a specific etiology that may be diagnosable. And so that's what I ended up having. And that's why a lot of doctors said, nothing's wrong with you. Everything looks good, because it's not going to come back on a lab result. It's not going to show up on x-ray or ultrasound or imaging. It's just kind of a big question mark, like hopefully it gets better kind of response. And so if that's you and you're struggling with that, the first thing I want to just say is your pain is valid and it's real. It's not all in your head. It's definitely in your body. And I'm sorry, because this is a really vulnerable and difficult place to experience pain. And that experience is often not given the full weight of what it truly should. We're talking about pain in the most vulnerable place of a woman's body. And to be able to experience that without any explanation can be frustrating. And so if someone is experiencing pain, I just want to say you're not alone. You're not broken. There is help. There are ways to get past this. But I would say the first step would even just be talking to your partner about it and explaining, like, this isn't very comfortable for me. I'm not enjoying this probably to the level that I should be or am worthy of being able to enjoy it. And I would say, don't have sex if it's causing pain. Like, we shouldn't be inviting that pain in the most vulnerable area. So I would say let's pause from the painful activities to support your body in a way that we can get you past this, so this doesn't become a pattern and something that your body holds on to and learns long term.
You did mention that you were referred to a sex therapist. That is usually the next step. This rabbit hole of things with the sex therapist, it might not lead to the results they're looking for. What can you tell us about your experience?
Well, I think if a lot of people will start with going to their doctor and trying to seek an answer from the doctor. And from there, I think pelvic floor therapy is also one of the main standards of care for where we refer to also therapy. So you may be referred to one of these. And I think what this shows is how complex vaginismus can be, because if we're referring to a pelvic floor therapist who's doing the physical work, but also sometimes some people are getting referred to maybe a sex therapist or a psychotherapist who's doing some of the cognitive, like psychosocial work. Which one is it? How do we know which is the best approach? And I think that shows how misunderstood vaginismus can be. I would say the answer is both. We do need both and more, because vaginismus incorporates the whole person and the whole being. It's not just a physical issue. It's not just a cognitive issue or a psychological issue. It's not just a social emotional issue. It's a nervous system issue at its core, which all of those kind of feed into. So I just think when it comes to what's the first step, it's difficult to know what that first step is, because you're going to see someone who's kind of siloed in their approach when we really need more of that holistic approach. And so if you have been referred to a sex therapist or counselor, I would say make sure you find someone that you feel comfortable with, someone who aligns with your values, someone who's going to respect maybe what your views and appreciation of sex and intimacy looks like, someone who feels comfortable talking about this topic, because I've met with a lot of counselors who I say, "Sex hurts," and they're like, "Okay, that's great. I'm so sorry. Let's talk about your childhood." And it's like, okay, we just kind of missed my main issue here. And then the other thing I want to say to this is, if you go to a counselor, even if you Google this on the internet, it's going to probably pull up that you must have a history of sexual abuse or sexual trauma. And it's a big, everyone wants to see that check mark right next to sexual trauma in their past. And that must be why you have vaginismus. But of all the clients I work with, I would say 50% do have a history of sexual trauma and 50% don't. I'm in the category that doesn't. And it's hard for both, for sure. If you do have that history, there's a lot of work and a lot of trauma therapy that needs to kind of happen in conjunction with really good quality vaginismus recovery. But if you don't have a history of sexual abuse or sexual trauma, it can feel pretty invalidating to be told you have a condition that many women must have been sexually abused to have. If that's not your past, you feel like, okay, I must be so bad that the only women who have what I have had experienced something simply horrific, but I haven't done that. So what's wrong with me? And you feel even more broken. A lot of us feel like maybe something happened subconsciously and we're not aware of it. And that might be the case for some. For me, I did a lot of work to try and pull out stuff in the past with zero coming up. And a lot of my clients, unfortunately, have gone down that with counselors too, which can invite in a lot more ambiguity and just deeper concerns when you already just don't have a foundation for who you are or what you're worth in this area. And you're told, well, you must have been abused, but then there's no recollection of that. And there's no ability to pull that out. So I just want to speak to both women in that situation, that it's hard on both accounts, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have had a history of sexual abuse or trauma. And it also means that if you do, there's good quality work that needs to happen to be able to heal from both the trauma wounds, but also now the residual vaginismus.
Endometriosis, painful intercourse connection. Can you please share a little bit how there's two connected and what is the difference between painful intercourse because of the dysfunction or as disease and then the other that is more in the vaginismus lane?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And I appreciate the nuance of kind of recognizing that endometriosis can have a play in painful sex. So part of my story is I actually do also have stage 2 endometriosis. I just had an excision surgery earlier this year. So now I have experienced both, 8 years of vaginismus and then still to this day, endometriosis. And the way that pain with intercourse is expressed in both of those, I have found through both my own personal story and also all these clients throughout the years, pain is a little different in how we parse this out. Again, there's a little nuance to this because one can cause the other and they can be intertwined. But just because I had endometriosis does not mean I wasn't able to heal from my vaginismus. So I do want to say that you can heal from vaginismus without needing to necessarily heal from the endometriosis. And I think that's an important distinction to make. And so typically what I have found is vaginismus pain looks a little bit like burning, stinging. There's some tightness. There's stabbing pain. There's tingly. It's more of that like kind of sharper pain described. People say it's like a knife or it's like they're, taking a machete to them, all horrific things. And it often takes place, I would say, at the vaginal opening or within the first inch of it. Some women do have it, 2 inches, 3 inches in as well. But I would say like probably more common is at the entrance there. Endometriosis pain, I find, is typically a deeper, achier kind of pain, feeling almost like you're bruised. And that's just because oftentimes if you have adhesions happening in your pelvic floor, they're pulling on muscles and you're getting more of that muscle ache kind of response and not that kind of pain flare aggregated like the response that you get with vaginismus. So typically that's how I parse it out. If someone says, I have both, then we likely do have both. And that endometriosis pain can be leading the body to protect and create that vaginismus pain. But we can still get past that vaginismus pain. The endometriosis pain often does need deeper intervention with either surgery and removal or some really good deep pelvic floor work. But even that, I do find that we kind of just have to start going after those adhesions to really release the pelvic floor better.
Thank you so much for sharing, because a lot of the women that I work with usually are struggling with some form of fertility issues. So that's one of the things that come up. One of the misconceptions about this work is that it will heal with childbirth. They're like, oh, once I have a baby, this is going to be gone. And they have a baby and they realize that is not true.
You're so right. I actually just had this conversation with one of my clients last week. And how there's this idea that once I get pregnant and I have birth a baby out, it'll stretch everything out enough so nothing will be too tight to come in. There's a lot there to kind of unpack. I would say the founding belief in there that I would want to call out is this belief that if you have vaginismus, that your vagina is too small. I was guilty of believing this too. I thought I was just too small, and that, when my husband came in, he'd stretch everything out and I'd be fine. And so I wish that were the case, because then, yes, just doing some exercises and stretching everything out would be better. Part of that is we do use dilators typically for vaginismus, and dilators are these either plastic or cylindrical tubes that get bigger in size. And you may think that that's used to stretch out the vaginal opening so things fit better, but it's really there to train the vaginal wall muscles how to relax upon something and entering. And so if vaginismus is an involuntary muscle response, it's happening, one, involuntarily outside of our control. And that response is either that closing and that tightening or the burning, stinging pain response that so many get. And so involuntarily means that it's either closing or pain outside of our control. And so if we were to stretch everything out, those muscles are still very capable of clenching and burning despite an 8-pound baby having gone through them. So it's not necessarily what's gone in or gone out that can make the difference about how that experience is going to be, because it's not the stretch of it. Your vagina is perfectly capable of stretching to push a baby out right now if you have vaginismus. It's perfectly capable of letting him in if you have vaginismus. It just doesn't want to. It's not trained well. It's, for whatever reason, it's deciding I'm not going to let him in. It also can make the same decision, I'm not going to let a baby out, and that can lead to C-section, which is another thing a lot of my clients experience who think that pregnancy is going to cure their vaginismus. Their body does the reverse vaginismus, where we keep a baby in and we don't really relax the way we need to, because there's just this protective response almost happening. So I really encourage my clients that if you do have vaginismus, let's get past that before we talk about carrying a baby inside of us. Now, if you're already pregnant and you're listening to this, you're like, well, I'm screwed. You're not. You can still work through this, and we can still make this a very beautiful birth. However, I do really find that doing the work up front to help coordinate those muscles, get rid of that pain response sooner, is going to help, because delivery really, I have found, actually complicates the process a lot more. And now you have a baby on the other side that you're trying to heal from, one, that the possible tearing that happened, all of the pelvic floor work that needs to already go into just labor and delivery. And now you're trying to heal from vaginismus on top of that, which is arguably a lot of work with a newborn child. And it just got a lot more complicated. So let's heal from the pain sooner. Childbirth is not going to fix it for everyone. You might hear those stories on the internet where they're like, it fixed me. I have my theories for that. But all in all, I have found more women, it doesn't quite fix their vaginismus. It complicates it.
Have you found the opposite, that women develop it after childbirth because of trauma?
Yes. Yeah. And so the fun thing with vaginismus is it's so broad and complex that there are a million reasons why we could get vaginismus. If you want to get into it, there's primary vaginismus, is like you've had this your whole life. Tampons are probably a struggle. You've never really been able to get anything in. And then secondary vaginismus is you've been able to get things in, and then you develop this later. And so if you developed vaginismus from childbirth, you would get what we call secondary vaginismus. As far as our program goes and what we do, we work with women all kind of the same, because vaginismus, no matter how it kind of presents, is an issue that reacts similarly to, more of that holistic treatment. But yes, you can get it from childbirth because you went through a traumatic experience. The brain has learned this to be a response that can create pain, and it sticks into that pain creation cycle. And we have that guarding response, the protective response, the involuntary response takes over.
I have 2 questions, and then we'll get into your amazing program. One is, what helps husbands support without pressure or resentment? Because like you say, it's a couple's journey. You did share a little bit at the beginning of your story how your husband and you needed to journey together. Tell us more in the husband lane as you experience that.
We have such a heart for husbands in our program, and my husband's so awesome. He has created a husband's mini course for our clients' husbands to go through. We have monthly husband support calls. So we do see the guy in this, and you're right. Like it's hard for him. Like he has his own fears. He has his own frustrations. He wants to help and he doesn't know what to do. And so we want to equip him well in that. I'd say the primary thing is understanding vaginismus. Male sexuality and female sexuality are extremely different. The way that the male body works and the female body works with arousal and everything is so different. It's hard for either gender to see how the other one works and to understand that. And so I would say to any guy who's listening, it's not your fault. It's not that she's not attracted to you. Many men think like, we must not be attracted to me, possibly, or did I do something? Or, maybe I said the wrong thing, or, my body's not the way she would like it to be. And they take it as a personal thing that they're a mismatch for their wife. And that can really hit a man's pride pretty hard. And that can just fuel rejection even more. And so I want to speak to vaginismus is not his fault. It is not a she's not attracted to you. It's not a she's not sexually aroused by you. She is probably not sexually aroused by anything right now because anything coming at her vagina has led to pain. And so I often say, if you would imagine anytime that you were to have sex, it's like someone kicked you in the balls. Guess what you would not want to do? Have sex. It would not turn you on. You would not get aroused. You'd see your wife and you'd probably run in fear because seeing your wife naked has led to this feeling of being kicked in the balls, and that's painful. That's similar to what she's experienced. And so we can't expect her to be aroused. We can't expect her to enjoy this. She deeply wants to be able to connect. She deeply wants to probably be there for you. She doesn't want you to, miss out on this experience. And so she's doing it likely out of an obligation to try and just uphold to you what she feels like she's supposed to do in marriage. And I want to speak to that. Like, that's a dangerous spot for her to be in because she's minimizing her pain to please the husband. I really don't think that that's what intimacy is in marriage. I strongly disagree that that is. Like, we should not experience pain at another person's enjoyment. And so I say to the man, understand vaginismus and understand that female arousal is different. She loves you. She's attracted to you. She doesn't know how to show that right now because she's in so much pain emotionally and physically. But if you understand that vaginismus happens involuntarily, she can't control it, it will help you better love her better. It'll help you better come beside her better. And I would encourage her to get help. You are not going to be the one to fix her. You don't want that role. You don't want to be the person to fix her. It's going to add in all that pressure and stuff. You just encourage her and do whatever it takes for her to get help and prioritize her experience in the bedroom above yours right now because she's the one experiencing pain. So if that means call insurance, find out what it covers. If that means show her our website and help her schedule a free consultation, if that works. If that means sending her some blog posts or some silly reels that you see on Instagram or something, just to support her in this, come beside her in this journey and help her take that next step because she probably feels very isolated, very alone, very vulnerable, and very ashamed. And she might need that extra help. And so that's a really important role I think a lot of our husbands and partners can take.
Well, thank you. One of the questions that I had is I work with many couples that also take my course because they are getting married. And like in your case, they're waiting until marriage, but somehow they feel like the switch is going to turn on on the wedding night and everything is going to be amazing. And sometimes it doesn't happen that way. How do you, in your experience, how do I say this? The expectation of all of the setting, I'm going to be an expert on this just because I have a wedding ring and I'll be able to overcome anything. So a lot of women go from no, I'm going to wait until marriage to wedding night. And there's all these expectations, like faith reasons, affections, they all play a role. But what is the transition?
You're asking great questions. So, and this may be one of the biggest reasons why I think church-going women have higher rates of vaginismus than non-church-going women. So we do, we have this like, wait until marriage to have sex. And we have this beautiful idea of what it's going to be like. But you're right. For all those years of dating and engagement leading up to it, we turn it off. We suppress. We shut down desire. We, almost say like, this is not good. This is not a good feeling that I should be having. And then expect once we get the ring on the finger, it's now going to be wonderful. And my body just going to let go. And it doesn't happen because we've trained it for the past 1, 2, 3, 4, however many years that when we feel the warmth and the bubbling and that desire happen, we say, oh, no, bad. No. And that takes a toll on a female's body. Not so much, I think, a man's body as much because it's a little bit is more, they're a bit more physical. But there's so much that happens psychologically, emotionally, cognitively in a woman's body when she's aroused. And to take all that and turn it off teaches your body that it is not capable or worthy of experiencing that feeling. And then the wedding night happens. And then we're also told it's supposed to be painful. So add in the element now of fear and anxiety around pain. And it's just a petri dish for vaginismus. It really is. And so I would say 2 things to that. 1, your wedding night should not be painful. Your first time having penetrated sex should not be painful. And I'm so sick of women spreading that lie to other women that, oh, it's going to hurt the first time. It should not hurt the first time, ever. If it's hurting, something's not right. And when I say something's not right, it's usually you're not aroused enough. You're not letting your biology take over. And you're pushing past your body's signs to just get him in. And it's not how we were designed to work. And so when it's painful, it's because it's probably happening too quickly. And we haven't listened to our bodies. Now, if you just think of maybe a couple who has, they didn't wait till marriage or whatever, and maybe it's what you see in the movies or something, but they go out to dinner, They're having a great night. They go out to ice cream afterwards. They're walking along the city in the stars. And then, hey, you want to come back to my place? She goes back to his place. One thing leads to another. This big organic thing happens. And that's their first time having sex together. And it's organic. It's full of arousal. It's kind of a one thing leads to another kind of a thing. And that's how women's bodies and biology really love to work. The wedding night is the exact opposite of that. You've had probably the most stressful day of your life. You're in high heels. You're in a tight wedding dress. You're dehydrated. You're starved. You only had cake to eat all day long. You're driving in the car to this hotel where he's supposed to take you out of this dress and look at your body and for the first time be like, let's do it. There's really nothing organically on our side there to help our body get to that place of regulation that it needs, also that it needs. And so, of course, that sounds painful. And you know what? If you were to ask me today, Jess, could you plan the most stressful day of your life, get in a dress, high heels, don't eat anything, and recreate that day? You know what the last thing I would say to my husband would be? Let's have sex right now. I'd be like, no, don't touch me. I'm going to bed. We can talk in the morning. I'm exhausted from today. Because I know my body is not going to enjoy sex that night. It's going to be rough. I just want to take a shower and go to bed. But yet we ask these young women, hey, this is the night, make them happy. So my stance, what I would say is this happens so organically and so biologically beautifully on our first time. It probably won't be the wedding night. It probably will be sometime during the honeymoon. And so I encourage, my husband and I do premarital at our church, and we just encourage couples, hey, take penetrative sex off the table for that night. He might be ready, and I promise he's going to have fun regardless of whether he's inside you or not. You are going to get to share a bed together, take a shower together, have fun together. It doesn't need to really put that kind of pressure on her. Let's let this happen in a way that her body naturally can get as aroused as it needs to, take as long as it needs to, get adequately lubricated while still using supplementary lube and having all the fun together in an organic way that leads to her having a fun time that's not painful, because that will set you up for the rest of your marriage in a really beautiful way.
I cannot resist this one. Have more alcohol.
Oh gosh.
I heard that one so many times when somebody's like, this is not working. And what are the downsides? Or is there any benefits to that type of?
No. No. I mean, I typically tell my clients, don't invite anything into the process that you don't want to normally be a part of your sexual routine. So unless you want to bring a bottle of wine with you to every time you're going to have sex, let's not invite it in. So I think we should not have to rely on a substance, a medication, a cream, or whatever. I would say the exception being supplemental lubrication, but we should not have to rely on anything to make sex enjoyable. It could work. You could get drunk and you won't, because, when you drink, it numbs pain. So it's just the way that alcohol interacts with our body and certain drugs and substances. It blocks our pain receptors. So yes, it would work essentially for some. I mean, for me, it didn't quite always work. A lot of clients, it doesn't work. The pain's too bad. I just wouldn't go there. I'd say there's better ways for us to be able to enjoy intimacy without having to rely on, anything else, really.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you share. So now I know we have an amazing program online. We're able to help women through this journey. So you can share everything about your program, where can women contact you? What is your program about? Anything that they can help women and give them directions.
Yeah. So, first off, I would just love to meet anyone whose story sounds even vaguely similar to mine. We do free consultations. It's just a 30, sometimes 45 minutes, depending on your story, free consultation that we offer. And we just meet and you share your story with me, I share mine. And then we can talk about the program if you want to. And I find these to be so beautiful because so many of us women have never really talked to someone else who's had this. And there's so much power in healing when you can finally share your story and look someone in the eye and say, you're not alone. I've been there too. You're not broken. And so I encourage everyone, just sign up for a free consultation. Let's talk, let's hear and glean wisdom from one another, I think, in that. But then, yes, we do have a program that we offer. I am totally biased, but it's incredible. And it's so cool to get to see so many lives and marriages transformed through this. It's a 12-phase program. And it's going to take you through the holistic approach. We do the pelvic floor, therapy kind of stuff, all the stretches, the exercises, the breathing. But we also do a lot of the cognitive stuff. We do a lot of nervous system stuff. We are going to work on, for those who have partners, we do partner integration kind of pieces. We support him as well. We have a whole journal that goes along with our program. And then the best part is we have a community of women that are in this together. And so you have a safe community of sisters who are like you in this journey. They are struggling, but also finding joy in it. And to be able to lean into that community we have found is super beautiful, to the point where we actually had women who would graduate and be able to have pain-free sex, but wouldn't tell us because they didn't want to leave our community. So we had to create a graduate community so we can still have that same connected, close sharedness, but not have to be bound to the conversation about vaginismus. So we do love our community, and just, it is a really sweet program, and it's just, there are lives transformed. So if you're interested in it, you can always go to our website, painfreeintimacy.com. You can check us out on YouTube. We have a bunch of just like client vaginismus stories on there too. If you want to hear others' journeys, it's again, so powerful to hear that you're not alone. So check those out. And then I would just really love to meet you and schedule a free consultation and let's chat.
Well, thank you. I think my clients or my listeners who want to get pregnant, it is the one mission. It is the one thing whether they're here on the podcast. What would you say to someone that is already have a host of things? Like you're saying, it's not just one thing, it's so many things coming at them. And this could be one of the things that might just push through. What you say to someone that wants to get pregnant, does not want to stop, because they're like, I'm running out of time to get pregnant. I can just push through. What would you say to them? Because this can make everything more traumatic to them at the end of the day.
I would say to that person, I see you. I've been married for 15 years and we've struggled with infertility for all of that. And, it's a horrible journey. I don't wish upon anyone, nor is vaginismus. Both are terrible. And I just want to say to that person, I see you, and my heart really goes out to you and breaks for you. But God is sovereign, and his timing is perfect. And I truly do believe that has called us first and foremost to intimacy within marriage. And if he grants us the ability to have a child, then he will call us to motherhood. But we don't get to skip over this first thing that he's called us to, like this beautiful coming together, this beautiful oneness, this beautiful cherishing of this, because we want to have a child more. And I get that timeline is there. But I would say, let's focus on really making intimacy something you value and cherish and flourish in. And I pray the reward and the fruit of that would be a child one day. We don't have control over that, but what we do have control is opening our hands, reaching out and touching the hem of Jesus's robe, and taking that step to reach out and saying, I'm willing to heal. And if that leads to a baby, deeper connection with my husband, confidence wherever, then praise God. But we only get to be obedient with what he's given us. And I would say that first step is, let's make intimacy something that we just really enjoy, as God has created us to enjoy that.
That was the perfect closing. Thank you so much for sharing this morning with us. Again, all the links to contact Jess are going to be in the show notes. We hope and pray that this bless you.
I'm my mama's little fertility helper. If this episode has helped you, or if you feel a little more hopeful, leave a review. She'll love it.
Hi, DTC Warrior. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps to get this show into ears of more women who need it. And be sure to sign up for my weekly encouragement, tips, and insights straight to your inbox. I promise to keep it practical, hopeful, and faith-friendly. All right, I'm off to tacos, chocolate, and turn my cycle. I'll meet you back here next week. Bye.